Well, welcome to another coach video tip. My name is Dan Foster. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and an executive coach here at Building Champions. And today I get to speak with one of our best, Jonathan Rogers, executive coach and team health, team culture extraordinaire. Jonathan, this is an area that you are an expert in, and I'm so glad that we get to be with you today. So welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me to this conversation. I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
absolutely, bud. Well, this month, Jonathan, we're talking about team health, we're talking about team culture. And in this video tip, we want to really narrow it down just a little bit to talk about the leader's responsibility in defining the culture and the behaviors that really drive to a healthy team and a healthy team culture. And so, I'm excited to learn from you. Like I said, you do this a lot with your clients, you work with them on this. And so if you're ready, I'm ready. You ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Okay, sounds
Yeah.
good. So let's just start at the top. Jonathan, why is team health so important for culture and really ultimately team performance?
That's actually a really good starting point. And, there's a lot of conversation around culture
Mhm.
and team health and everything else right now. And I think it's important to start off by defining what we really mean by culture.
Yeah, please.
Because, yeah, and I have my own personal definition. I tend to see culture as being really the combined behaviors of
Mhm.
everybody on the team.
Okay, I like
Your
that.
culture
Yeah.
actually exists,
Hmm.
whether it's intentional or not, and whether it's something you want or not.
Yeah.
It exists. It's the combined behaviors. I love your intro there. This is about behaviors.
Yeah.
BC will often have perhaps a more refined definition. It goes something like culture is really the collective attitudes and behaviors that are
Okay.
expected and accepted. I love that.
Yes.
Expected and accepted. So I think that's a great succinct definition of what
I
culture
I
means.
like that a lot
Yeah.
because just to build off of that, it's
Yeah.
almost like it's a living thing, right? It's
Yes.
made up
Yes.
of everyone's behaviors, how they're showing up.
Yes.
And you use that word that they're expected, which is sort of the leader's part in it, and then they're accepted by everyone that's on that team, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And so ultimately it's a question of, well, what culture do you want? And I think to have your team behaving and treating one another in healthy ways really directly impacts your culture.
Hmm.
I think that we all understand that a team, any kind of team, needs to be healthy to perform. Think of
Yes.
the opposite. Think of an unhealthy team, whether it's
Yeah.
a sports team that is typically unhealthy, right? And they're
Right.
just not going to
Right.
perform. They're not going to be able to work against their competition,
Right.
and they may even be working against their own players if they're unhealthy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Like if
so,
there's a toxic sort
yeah,
of person on the
exactly.
team, like no one wants to give their best for that person or even be around that person, right?
Exactly. And that's often what we see with teams. There'll be one or two players that are just creating an unhealthy environment for
Mm,
the rest. And as we'll just talk about, that tends
yeah,
to spread through the team, the behaviors that we
absolutely.
described.
Okay. So everything that I'm hearing is so far is you're telling me that culture really doesn't happen by default. It
No.
happens by design. Like our good friend Henry Cloud says you either get what you create or what you accept, I think,
If you
right? Or
allow.
something like that.
Yeah.
What you allow. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. What you
Yeah.
create or what you allow. And so let's talk about that because as leaders, we need to be creating the culture, the expectations. So, what role does a leader play in just designing that healthy team environment?
I think the leader's role is pivotal
Mm,
in it. And firstly, we're talking about behaviors here. We all, I think, intuitively know that team members will tend to follow the behaviors of their leader.
oh,
And
yeah.
it's a natural thing. We tend to
Yeah.
do it. And so if a leader is not healthy themselves, and if they're not treating others in respectful and healthy ways, then
Mhm.
guess what? You can expect the other team members to
That's right.
follow. Again, go back to what's expected and accepted, right?
Yes.
So
Okay.
I think it begins with that idea that
Mm.
it's all about their own self-leadership. How are they
Yes.
leading themselves? So they need to look at themselves in the mirror first. The second part, I think, is it's really up to the leader to, like you say, to define that culture
Mhm.
themselves. And there are different ways to do that. And if you give me a moment, I'd like to
Yeah.
talk about a couple of very effective ways and simple
I
ways.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most organizations or teams have some sort of core values, or we like to call them convictions.
Yes.
If they don't, they need them because these are what really drive the expected behaviors. So it's really important that the leader drive the process to align the team behind those core values or core
Mhm.
convictions in order to be able to establish those expected behaviors that come
Yeah.
under those convictions.
Yep.
And I think that all starts at the leader. It starts at the executive team level too. And
Mhm.
remember, if team members are looking up at a team that is consistent with those core values and behaviors
Yes.
or convictions, then you can expect them to follow too. So now they really are driving a consistent culture
Yes.
through the
Yes. And it sort
organization.
of cascades down from that
Yes,
executive team.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah. I
exactly.
love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Just going back to that word accepted. So expected and accepted. Originally, when you said that, I was thinking people agreed with them. They accepted them as the convictions, but really it's also about what as a leader do you allow to happen? And are you
yes,
accepting bad behavior? Are you accepting toxic behavior? And if you accept it and allow it to happen and you don't address it, then this is the culture you've designed as a leader and you're
100%.
responsible for it.
Absolutely 100%. And that's it.
Okay.
And so that really goes back to the leader clearly understanding their pivotal role in all
Yes.
of this. And the leaders I work with, whether it be with teams or one-on-one coaching, this is something I'm really impressing on them. Is just
Sure.
how, as you mentioned Dr. Henry Cloud earlier, and
Yeah.
I love the way he says that you are ridiculously in charge as a leader.
Yes.
And we are as leaders and we need
Yep.
to accept that responsibility. So,
Love
yeah,
it. Love it. Okay. So you
yeah,
mentioned that you're talking and working a lot with executive teams, and you're not only coaching leaders on those executive teams, but you bring those executive teams together
yeah,
for a building champions like executive retreat or a workshop. And so, in your experience of working with those teams and just focusing in on team health, what have you found to really be the foundational pillars of team health?
yeah. Great question. You're right. I've become kind of the team health guy, building champions. I've done dozens and dozens of these executive retreats and team meetings, and I actually have not found a better model than Pat Lencioni's five dysfunctions of a
Yep.
team. It's an
Yep.
oldie with a goodie. It still works. It is directly relevant to how teams show up and what a true healthy team should look like. And I think his whole premise is that high performing teams need not just be smart and really good at what they do, but they
Yeah.
also need to be healthy. In fact, to be a healthy team is actually a competitive advantage.
I love
Um,
it.
the model that we have used, I personally use, and we continue to use dozens and dozens of times, is to begin with effective communication. So we love DISC, and we have everyone do a
Yep.
DISC assessment, and it's a great leveler because there's no right or wrong, and really it's a way for people to discover their own and others' behavioral styles and
Mhm.
therefore communication styles to understand how we're different
Yeah.
and how we're similar, but how we actually function and communicate together. Then we really dive into the five dysfunctions, and I'll
Yeah.
walk through it real quick, but if
Please
that's
do.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll link to it
yeah,
as well so that people can
yeah.
see it. But yeah, please walk us through those
It's
five real quick.
it's phenomenal. The whole thing is built on a pyramid if you haven't seen it, and I think you
Yes.
have.
Yeah.
But really, it's built on trust and the behavior. He talks about the dysfunctions,
Hmm.
but we tend to talk about those um, cohesive behaviors that drive healthy teams. So the first one is really building trust.
Hmm.
Trust is foundational to everything. And it's not, do I believe that you're being honest with me or you're not lying to me? No, it's a vulnerability-based trust whereby people they feel safe to be able to be themselves. They know one another. I know you, you know me.
Yes.
And so this is foundational because if people feel safe, then the next part of it is that they can then engage in healthy conflict.
Mm.
Healthy conflict is not avoiding conflict. In fact, far from it. Is finding that sweet spot
Yes.
between that sort of constructive and destructive
Yes.
conflict, where we're really putting the most significant topics where we're allowing ourselves to disagree. In fact, it's more healthy to disagree and get your disagreements out on the table in a healthy way.
Yeah.
If you can do that, then you can drive to what I call clarity, closure, and commitment.
Mm.
So the healthiest teams are driving toward that clarity and commitment around their decisions and the direction.
Yes.
Because when they get together as a team, that's one of their most significant responsibilities. If you
Yeah.
can drive to that commitment, the next piece is that you are there, the team members hold one another accountable to those decisions and commitments.
Yes.
Can't
Okay.
be any accountability unless there is prior commitment. So it's really important to understand the order of this, and it goes in a pyramid.
Yep.
But embracing peer-to-peer accountability is really, and probably the hardest of all the team
Yeah.
behaviors. But ultimately, it lands at the top of the pyramid, and the final dysfunction or behavior is actually focusing on shared or collective results
Okay.
opposed to results of my own area or my own departments, right? So
Yep.
it's like, what do we collectively own as a team? And we focus on those first as our first team, members of our first team, in
Yes.
order to be able to drive together as a team toward those shared results. So that's it in a nutshell. It's just one
Yeah.
other point. You
Great.
mentioned the role of the leader. Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's a really important sort of extra point here. I've done dozens and dozens of these, and the most successful team health retreats and so on are those that whereby the leader is fully committed to the process and the
Yes.
outcome. Where they're
Yes.
not, and it goes back to your prior question about the role of the leader. If
Yeah.
they are a little somewhat disengaged or looking to defer responsibility for the whole process,
Hmm.
others, it's not going to be successful. But
Yeah.
most where the leader is all in on this process and the desire to drive toward a more healthy team.
I love
So
it. I love it. And I think I have found that as I've been through these workshops and even experienced them with you leading, that it's when the leader is vulnerable as well, and
yes,
it doesn't put up a facade of I've got it
yeah,
all figured out and I know everything, but is vulnerable to sometimes say I struggle in this area. This is a
yeah,
weakness for me, and
exactly.
I know I need to improve. Please share with me what I can be doing differently, right? It's
Yes,
that vulnerability that
yes.
comes with that trust that you want to establish.
Yeah, when we talk about peer-to-peer accountability, it's about feedback, right? And we always have
Yes.
the leader go first so that vulnerability to be open and to be receptive to feedback from the team members, right?
Yes.
Is usually accountability rolls downhill, right?
It's right.
But that's an absolutely great point too.
Yeah.
So that's why the self-leadership and the mindset of the leader needs to be right through all of this process. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
yeah.
So as we kind of come to the end of our conversation here, what happens, or I should say, what's at risk for a leader that chooses just maybe not to take team health and culture seriously? I guess I've worked with leaders before that have said, culture is HR's responsibility, or culture is, that's the soft skills. I'm about results and getting things done, hitting deadlines. So what's at risk if a leader is thinking that?
Well, it's funny because my mind goes to, um, like anything else, if things left untended tend to disintegrate. Where we live in a world
Yes.
where, left untended, whatever it is, the trend
Whatever.
is toward chaos and disorder, right? Come the
Yes.
concept of entropy. Teams
Yes.
are the same, right?
Okay,
There's this
that's
thing
good.
that I geek out about, the law of increasing disorder. It's alive and well. And this is exactly what happens with teams. We all know this with our own bodies, our homes,
Yes.
our yards, finances, marriages, whatever it might be.
Whatever it is.
If
Yeah.
there is an intentional focus put on the health and cohesiveness of the team, it's going to disintegrate. It's natural. So that's
Yes.
kind of, that's what's at risk, I believe. And then you ultimately, if you take that to the nth degree, left untended, people are messy. And you're going to get a toxic
Probably
stew
that's right.
of humanity and bad behaviors. We all see it, right? And
Uh,
because we're all flawed. As human
yes.
beings, we're all flawed. And so unless you're intentionally tending to it,
Yeah.
you're going to have that. So that's really what's at risk. And
Yeah.
I've never seen, I've seen teams fake it for a while. I've,
Yes.
I've seen dysfunctional teams get results, let's be honest,
Yeah.
but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And ultimately, yeah, I think, you're really fooling yourself if you believe that you can get sustainable results and success,
Yes.
not tending to the idea that you need to have a healthy and cohesive team. And it takes work.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It is. It is hard work. It's the burden of leadership, but boy, do the results pay off. I mean, just your efforts pay off with the results and
Yeah.
the quality of the culture that you can establish.
Yeah.
I know it's so gratifying, I guess, as a leader when you see the efforts pay off to focus in
Yeah.
on culture. So
Yeah, yeah. And let's be honest, who wants to join a healthy team? So it's the greatest attraction tool that you have.
exactly.
It's also the greatest retention because
Yeah.
people will leave their leaders and they'll leave unhealthy teams. And so
Right.
if you want to hire and retain the very best high performers, you need to be focusing on the environment within which
Yeah.
they are playing, right?
Love
So
it. Love it, man. Okay, so we've talked about a lot today. So thank you. This has been awesome. I know we're just scratching the surface on it. So there may be leaders who are watching and listening to this going, wow, that was great, but I don't know where to start. I know I need to focus on my team. I know I need to focus on culture. What's your advice for them? What's just one thing that they can do based on today's call? Like, what would you recommend in terms of next steps?
yeah, so this I get it. This stuff is hard. If there's one, this is part 1A and then a 1B maybe. So um, spend intentional time, not just on what you do as a team, but how you do it
Mm,
together,
good.
how you collaborate and how you work together. You need to set time in your agendas to talk about and reflect on how are we showing up.
Yeah.
And remember, it begins with the leader first. Look in the mirror first, right? So check yourself. How is my self-leadership? Am I showing up in the right way?
Yes.
I would expect others and accept others to be behaving in that way. We could talk about vision. I have always
Mm,
seen that inspired teams tend also to be much more likely to be healthy teams.
okay.
And I think the more you can talk about an envisioned future that inspires people,
Yes.
that really unites, particularly if it's surrounded by a clear purpose as to why we do what we do.
Love it.
I guess I would just come back down to the idea that you need to spend time on it, and you're not going to get it right to start off with. It's okay,
That's right. That's
right?
right.
Ultimately, if you really want to do this right, hire a professional, get a professional facilitator
Yes.
who is equipped, trained and certified to do this kind of work. One
Yeah.
of the benefits in hiring somebody to do it for you is as the leader, you get to participate as opposed to
Yes.
have to lead it.
Yes.
But no, I think, you just start the journey, and
Yes.
it's not going to be perfect, but begin the journey. People will give you credit for trying, but it's more about that how you behave than what you do. And have intentional conversations around that, I think,
Love it.
is really the way to go. So
Thanks, Jonathan. This has
yeah.
been great. So I really appreciate your insight, your wisdom on this. So, folks, if you're watching today and listening and you want to learn more about how you can create a healthy and high performing team culture, check us out at buildingchampions.com and make sure you connect with Jonathan on LinkedIn. Just reach out to us. If you need help, we want to have a call with you. It doesn't cost any money. We'll do a discovery call together. We can find out about your unique situation and we'll share with you some tips on what you can do to get started. So thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. And Jonathan, cheers, man. Great to be with you.
Grace, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely.